Welcome to the Whole Conversation, where we explore ways to love more for the good of the whole. I'm Dr. Julie Krull. I'm here with Marian Head, author of The Revolutionary Agreements. You can kind of see the poster hanging behind her. It's beautiful. The book, The Revolutionary Agreements. She's also the co-founder of the Agreements Institute and has a training coming up. So I am so honored to spend this time with you exploring these agreements, Marian. It's a delight. And there's a tough one here. And so I really want to ask you about this next one. So first of all, welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here, Dr. Julie. And oh my, these times call for revolutionary agreements. So thank you for inviting me to share these agreements that thousands and thousands of people have been using for over 30 years to be able to feel as much inner peace as possible during these challenging times. Yeah, thanks.
Yes, yeah. You know, these times do call for this, and this is a simple tool. Why am I doing this series? Why does this matter? Is because these are simple little resources, little tools that we could put in our toolbox that when we practice them, make all the difference in the world. And we have real live examples of that over and over and over again. So beautiful. Thank you for that contribution to who we are. And I appreciate this so much. I would love, oh my gosh, some of these are incredible. I just go over I have I have a bookmark in my hand with these a little, it's got the agreements on it. And I love this. There they are. There they are.
Yeah.
So these times call for revolutionary agreements, and this one's a tough one. Resolve conflicts directly.
Mm.
Resolve conflicts directly. Oh, Marian, tell us more about that.
Well, I'll tell you what's really hard about that one. It's not doing it. So
Ooh.
directly means as soon as possible and directly with the person or people with whom you can resolve whatever the issue is. So if you think about a time when you had an issue with someone, there was some kind of a conflict, and you think about the stress because of that, was it at the time that you were resolving it? Or was it the days, weeks, months, or even years before it
Mm,
was addressed? Oh my goodness, what doesn't work
yeah.
is not resolving it. So this is a practice. It's a practice that I wasn't good at this when I first started it. And then I got better and better. And it's one of the most freeing things, it's for me, one of the most freeing agreements. I agree to resolve conflicts directly, like, phew, take it off my back. And it's not by giving it to somebody else, it's by really going for resolution with the other person. And it's a bit of an art, but it's mostly a commitment to the relationship is what it's about. It's a commitment to the relationship,
Beautiful.
not about being right. Okay, here I go. I'm right. You're wrong. No, no, no. It's like we have a relationship and I'd like to continue to have one. So here's something that's not working for me.
Can I just interject a really tiny piece here because I think it's important that resolve conflicts directly. They could be huge. They could be life and death matters of conflict, but it also could be that little tinge, just that little conflict of tension within yourself that you and I are having a conversation, we're out having lunch, you say something and I go, and then
Mm,
I go home and I'm thinking about it all day. What did she mean by that? How did she realize how she said that? Was she thinking about what did it, and so then that's going, and that's not even a conflict between you and I, but if I practice this agreement, I go back to you and I say,
mm,
I just need to clear this. When when we were having lunch and you said this is what came up from. So resolving conflicts, even it could be the huge conflicts like family crisis kinds of huge conflicts or political conflicts. And it can be just between a loved one of those little things we say and do that affect one another. So I know you probably agree with that, but I'd love to hear you say that, and you're always good with examples. So I know you're gonna give us some good ones, but
Well, this is especially, well, it's important in every aspect of life, at home, at work, in the world.
Yeah.
But at work, there is so much lost productivity because of the drama that builds when an issue is not addressed. And I remember I was in a marketing company, and one of my team members, I had heard through the grapevine, they call it the rumor mill, that he was training people in another marketing company. And I thought, what? Like, has he jumped ship? And I at first felt very angry. And I guess fear too. If I think about it, I was afraid that he was going to take his whole team with him. And so I had to figure out what to do to keep everybody there. And there was all this drama. And I started thinking about who I was going to tell people, up the corporate ladder. And suddenly it was like, oh, resolve conflicts directly. So this is my practice. So I sent him an email. Hey, I heard you were training this other marketing company. What's up? And he wrote back and said, yeah, they were interested in my cold calling techniques. And I said yes to this one contract. And, I love the company I'm with. I would never think about leaving this company, whatever. He cleared it up in a second. And it was okay. He wasn't under an exclusive where he couldn't do that kind of training. So it was done. It was done. Instead of, can you imagine if I had started telling people up and down the line about how he was leaving us? And it would have it could have ruined him.
Yeah.
It certainly would have stopped our productivity cold, because that's where everybody would have been focusing on, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's huge how much productivity and joy is lost, and how much stress we put on ourselves when we hang out in that space before we talk to somebody. I did it pretty quickly that time because I've been practicing this agreement, but I didn't always do it quickly. I had a boss once who was very sarcastic, and I really didn't like that. And I found that I was getting sarcastic too. And I let months go by and months. And then I thought, I have to quit. I can't stand coming into work anymore. It's just so stressful, because he was that cutting sarcasm. And then I thought, well, if I'm going to quit, I may as well talk to him first, and see if we can do this differently. So I made an appointment with him for the next day. I said, there's something I want to talk with you about. He said, okay, how about 10 o'clock tomorrow? And that night I couldn't sleep, and it was like, oh, am I going to tell him this? And I went into his office and sat down. He was one of these bosses that had this giant desk, and he's got a giant chair, and you've got a little chair on the other side of the desk. And he's got his arms crossed. And I said, I really need your help with something. And suddenly he uncrossed his arms and he leaned forward like, oh, how can I help you? I was like completely open now. And I said, well, there's something that's been happening to me since I started working here that I don't like. And I've gotten really sarcastic. And I think it's because that's the way you communicate with me. And so I throw it back, and it just doesn't feel good to me. And I just wondered if we could communicate in a different way. And he said, sure. I said, oh, yeah, okay. Now, did he actually do that? No. But we had that moment. So after that, when he did throw a zinger, I could kind of give him a wink, or, oh. And so we had a different relationship from that moment forward. But the months that I agonized over it, it's not worth it.
Oh,
So, yeah, that's another story.
great example. It is so important in the workplace, and so I'm going to drop this in. It's in our personal relationships at home, community, friendships, but in the workplace, we spend a lot of time there, and a lot of times we're there as a team because we have different strengths and weaknesses, and we literally have real differences, and we're not from the same tribe, so we might not share the same values, right? But hopefully we're there for the same mission of the organization.
Yes.
A lot of workplace right now, I'm gonna drop in the difficult one. A lot of what's going on in the workplace now are disagreements about politics
Mm,
and what's happening in our world. There's a lot of change. There's a lot of um, revolution happening, if we were talking about revolutionary agreements, there's just a lot of change happening in our world and in our workplace because social media and different news and this whole last year has been very stressful. So number one, how do we deal with that in the workplace? And then number two, how do we deal with that out in the world? This is a difficult one. It's a difficult one. How do we resolve conflicts directly when we're so
Mhm.
disconnected from maybe the source of that conflict? But first, the workplace with political views. I'm curious if you have any
Mm.
advice for that.
Well, I would say you need all 12 agreements for that one. Really, because it starts with
Yeah,
I agree to live my mission. And as you said, if we have a common mission at the organization, then that's where we want to have our focus. But it also comes in with the last agreement, which is I agree to lighten up. It's like, let's lighten up here. This has
beautiful.
become such a heavy topic. And
Hmm.
so respecting our differences, we have a video out on that, you and I already, is key here. And there's a way to do it where it's this question that has been out for a long time, like, would you rather be right or happy? And it doesn't mean giving up who you are, because there's another agreement. I agree to speak my truth with compassion. But I'm serious, Dr. Julie, we need all the agreements to handle this one. Politics in the workplace and at home. I haven't met any family yet that doesn't have two opposing views. And so there's a way to stop opposing each other and look for a common vision. Like, and I addressed this already in respecting our differences, but like, what would you like our country to be like? And, why do you like that? And to learn from each other. Oh my gosh, what a rich resource it is to have somebody right next to you at home or at work who thinks differently. It's like,
Yeah.
wow, tell me more about that. What makes you think that way? Oh, I see. Wow, it expands us instead of staying narrow and right. you
Yeah.
know.
So you bring up a really good point with the workplace before we go more global here is that little, resolving conflicts directly. So we have these perceived conflicts. They're voting for that person. I'm voting for this one. Okay. You know, instead of going directly to that person, resolving conflict directly, going and saying, help me understand your position. I love you. I
Mhm,
respect you. We work
mhm,
together. And I really want to understand what you're thinking about this and what information moves you and where you're at. So really you're going to them and asking to help understand. I love those
mhm,
questions that you
mhm.
pose, tell me more. How do you understand this?
Yeah, we already know what we think. Isn't it more fun to expand what we know? I am learning so much from a family member of mine who is politically opposite from me. I'm learning so much that
Mm,
I had no idea. And that's most of us have no idea because we were in the opposition rather
yes.
than in the same vision of a country that works for everybody, a world that works for everyone. I mean,
Mm,
that's one of my mottos.
yeah. Yeah, so this is a good thing. If we all really are invested in a world that works for everyone, then let's talk about the politics because we've had so much apathy for decades
Mhm.
now with the political. We sit back and we go, my vote doesn't matter. I don't have any say, and people don't even vote. They don't pay attention to the issues. We just have done this. Okay, we're going to go clear to the left. We're going to go clear to the right. We're going to go clear to the left, and we just do this bipartisan thing, and it sometimes it feels polarized, so it's like can't make a difference anyway. But yet we're all stepping into this conflict now, and we can't deal with it directly unless we learn what are those steps. So I'm curious what you might say, because instead of us having apathy and saying, ugh, throw our hands up, doesn't matter anyway, my voice is never going to be heard, my vote doesn't count, what can we do to resolve conflicts directly?
Well, if it's a political conflict, the directly is with the political people from my viewpoint. And so to get to know your congressman, your senator, whatever party they are, to talk with their people if you can't get directly to the senator or congressman or woman, to get to know their caseworkers, their legislative aides, to speak to them because they are in the best position to make the difference for you, and they're your elected official. Now, you might not have voted for them, but in your area, that is who your elected official is, and you are one of their citizens, and they listen to you, or they need to listen to you. And so make the phone calls, show up at your local offices, do it from a place of respect and desire to find common solutions. I'll give you an example of this. Some years ago, and many Congresses have put forth legislation for a cabinet level Department of Peace. And that would be a department that focuses on both domestic peace, like the issues that result in domestic violence, as well as international peace. And the focus would be on understanding other people, other cultures, so that we can communicate well and know how to have a common peace. So we went to Washington from every state. We gathered together. We went through a few days of training. We knew the legislation well by the time we went to our senators' offices. Mm-hmm. At the time, my senator was a different political party. So I went, I talked about the Department of Peace there and what would it need to say for this senator to sign, to co-sponsor this bill. I also went to the local office when I went back to my home state and spoke directly with the senator and wanted to know what would need to be in the language for her to support that legislation. And I learned so much. So it takes more than one person. One person is not the right person. Yeah. It takes all of us to create something that works for all of us.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful advice. And I just want to follow that thread, pull that thread through, because your example is very poignant in that you all work together. And when there's someone that is alone and isolated saying my voice isn't heard, my vote doesn't matter, really it just takes all of us to step forward. Even it's better when we're synergized together, as a collective, but even one voice at a time, as you began to voice your opinion directly, resolve conflicts directly with those that are decision makers, and then tell others to do the same, then we each step into that voice that can be heard. So I love that. Thank you.
You're
Thank you so
welcome, Julie.
much. Yeah.
It was a great experience. And did it result in getting a Department of Peace? Well, you would have heard about it if it did. But the Congresses continue to put that out as a possibility. We'll see if this one does. And things take time, especially in the political arena. Yeah. Things take time. And we can always ask, who's the next person I should speak with? Of the people in the political arena. Who's the next person, or how can I have my voice heard? Is there a group of people who continue to research, put out information that's helpful to you so that you can make good choices when you're on the floor? Yeah.
Great advice. Great advice. Marian, again, this was so delightful. This is such an important topic. Resolve conflicts directly. It's a big one, and we could spend so much time talking about it, but this was a good small snippet that is so helpful to our listeners. So I really appreciate you sharing that with us today.
Thank you for the opportunity to do it. I'm delighted.
Thank you. Thank you. This is Dr. Julie Krull. We've been talking with Marian Head, author of Revolutionary Agreements, and you've been listening to the whole conversation. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.